All right, it's Sunday night, September 26th, Giving University class, and we're talking about section 4. And so we're just asking for some input on which people are have an interest in or are passionate about. The Martinez says, what are you guys thinking, or what are you seeing?
Well, for me, I'm interested in like orphans because in a way, my wife and I were both, we had parents that divorced. And me specifically, I had a dad who like abandoned me. So I kind of feel in a way like a relation right there to orphans.
Okay, that's
And
good.
for me-
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it would be sex trafficking. That makes me really sad, and I want to help make an influence and impact in that and resolving that issue we have going on.
Okay. And some of you have said homeless, some of you said orphans, and probably abandonment issues. On class, I think it is 5, we talk a little bit about homelessness and really key events in people's lives that have hurt them. And hopefully it helps us understand and gives us a little more understanding of why people are in certain places and how we can be a better understanding people, not a judgmenting people, not so judgmental of everybody that's we don't think's doing so good. So thank you very much. Is it important to find a passion? The answer is why it's because you'll be more involved. If you like something, looks like, or if you have an interest or you have a passion, you'll actually do something about it. And so that's really what we can do. Let's see. Peggy, you sent me. Peggy, why don't you send me an email? It's daniel.dyk, because I'll forget the chat at gmail,
nope.
at gmail.com, and I'll double check.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll do that.
No problem. Isn't there more to life than eat, work, and sleep? Of course there is. But what happens in life is you're a kid, then you're an older kid, and you kind of have these stages of life, and then you finally hit adulthood where everything becomes perfect. Except after you forget how perfect it is, what you're doing is you're eating and you're working and you're sleeping. So you get in this cycle, and sometimes when you're around 35, you go, wow, is this all there is? And so we try to help set the table for you on saying that there's more than just really surviving. There's a lot more to life. There's a more depth to what goes on. And if you haven't found something yet, or if you're kind of making up an answer because you think I want to hear something, that's okay. We just want to kind of stir that in you to see and ask and encourage you to look around. Maybe if you go to a church, if you don't go to a church, maybe friends that are you consider generous. Just kind of see what's stirring in those worlds.
Are you forgetting to share your screen?
Probably.
Yes.
Did it go away?
Yeah.
How about now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Oh, you know what?
yeah.
You know what happened is I wanted to see you guys.
Uh-huh.
It's actually sometimes we use 2 computers, and that's why we do 2 computers. But let me do this real quick. I think we got everything there. Yeah. And I appreciate you getting me back on the right track. And here we go. So here's some terms that you'll hear: 501c3, and that's the government regulation that defines a nonprofit status. IRS form 990, and it's not the form I had you print out, but it's actually it's a tax return that nonprofits have to fill out for the IRS. And let me see here if I can show you a sample. Did a tax return just show up on your screen or something looking like that?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what a tax return looks like. Every 501c3 has to file one of these to stay legal. And this is the part where, or the piece that we help you try to figure out what's going on with the nonprofit. Tax returns are very boring, so don't get too excited about seeing this. But they really help us kind of see what's going on with the nonprofit because it's the legal piece. NGO is a non-government organization. It's an international term for nonprofit. More often than not, you'll hear it over, in another country. We tend to use the word nonprofit a lot more than the word NGO in the United States, I would say. Here's some misconceptions about nonprofits, or what are some misconceptions? What do you guys think are some misconceptions out there about nonprofits?
That 100% of donations go to actually helping the people that you've donated for.
Okay, that's good. Antonio, any thoughts? Maybe Antonio.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, my coworkers.
Oh, your signal's a little tough right now.
Getting.
All right, Emily, let me jump to you. Any misconceptions?
Yeah, I just still hear Antonio.
Let me see, somebody's giving me bad feedback.
I hope his signal gets better. Yeah, I
He's-
can say something really quick.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like my perception was similar to what I'm bad with names, but the lady that just shared, she talked about how I kind of thought that if a place was a charity or a nonprofit, that all of their funds were going to help people. And I think a lot of people assume that no one in a nonprofit is paid as well. That's something that I think was eye-opening as I've gotten older and looked more into charity work, just to realize like there are funds that need to be covered outside of just donating to your cause.
Right. I think also when a nonprofit starts or as a startup, there's more volunteers. When it becomes and kind of becomes a bigger entity, it has to have, at certain points, you got to start having compensated people just to make it run. A lot of times volunteers, it's nice to have volunteers, except you can't fire them, because they're volunteer. And so anyway, there's kind of a growing process for a nonprofit. Let me jump back to the screen again. Can a nonprofit make money?
Yes. Yes, they do.
They can make money, okay.
Yes.
It can, yes, it can charge for stuff. And so anyway, that's one of the things that's a little bit of a misconception. It can also spend less than it brings in. And in theory, like in a company, when you do that, that's called the difference is called profit. It's not really called that in a nonprofit, but it's kind of the same thing, because if you spend more than you bring in, that doesn't work. So you have to always bring in at least $1 more. Can a nonprofit pay employees?
Yes.
Yes, it can.
Yes. And so what makes it a nonprofit?
Their profit is like a certain percentage, like a low percentage, I guess, of profit.
A low percentage, Okay,
I would say that profit is not the goal of the organization. The goal of the organization is, to provide services to people in need. Although you still make money, it's not the goal.
Yeah, and nobody that's in the organization takes money out except for a salary. So it's not, like a company that pays everybody salaries and there's profit left over that goes to the shareholders or the owners of the company. If it's a nonprofit, you don't distribute money like that. Any excess money, should go to the charity or, saving for the next year's operations or whatever.
okay. Basically, all the money it spends must be in line with its purpose. So, for example, if it's working with homeless people, all the money it spends on should be in line with their purpose, which is to help the homeless. If it's to help veterans, it's to help veterans. So whatever the purposes of the nonprofit, that's the intent of what the purpose and the mission and the charge of the nonprofit is. It's in line with that. Why do we have nonprofits in the United States? There's a big reason. The government, in a way, tries to influence our behavior, which can be good and not so good. And there's many arguments about that, of course. Sometimes, or most of the time, it seems they try to control all our behavior. The tax code has become a mechanism to encourage and discourage behavior. So a good example is, why is there a mortgage interest deduction? The reason is to encourage home ownership. If they took away the mortgage interest deduction, you'd still have people buying homes, but it wouldn't be nearly to the same volume as when you have the interest deduction. Why are there charitable contribution deductions? To encourage giving. So actually, our government's trying to encourage us to be generous, or at least get in the right direction. And so they give us the ability to write off our charitable contributions. Since nonprofit can't spend on things outside of its purposes, it should give you confidence that your donation won't be wasted. And really, that's the point of our class tonight. That's the point really of our course, is we want to make sure you know that you're getting the most effective use of every $10 you donate to that nonprofit, and you feel good about it. We've had people in our classes, because everybody's trusting and loving and all that good stuff, but a lot of times people can be manipulated. And there's been people that have lost. There's one lady I know lost $125,000 to a nonprofit. She donated that much and it closed down because the guy was a crook. And so one of the reasons we do this, and she came to class, was we just wanted to give her a little bit of, give her some training into what to look for. This is a really good question. And did I ask this last week? I think I did. Does anybody remember this?
100,000. 1.5 million?
It was
Yeah,
like
1 point-
in the millions, yeah.
Well, nobody
1 million.
remembered the right answer so far, but it's close.
Maggie says 1.5 million.
There we go. It's 1.56.
1.5 million.
Right.
5,000.
Now, is anybody surprised by that last week? I would imagine the people that said like 1,000 nonprofits might be surprised. When I took this class, that was one of the most surprising things that I learned right off the bat, was how many how many nonprofits we have. Let me see if I can close my chat here. The problem is when you close anything, you're worried about closing the call. So anyway, yeah, there's 1,500,000, or probably a little more now, nonprofits that are registered in the United States. 1.6 million actually. So it grew a little bit from what I was recalling. Now, believe it or not, it's hard to give to every single one of them. If you have, $1.6 million, you could give everybody $1. You'd spend 50 cents on postage. So you get everybody about half of that. But basically, you gotta pick the ones that you like, or pick the one that you like. And what you're trying to do is find a nonprofit or a few of them that align with what your interests and passions are. So somebody said homeless kids. And so what you try to do is find a nonprofit that works with homeless kids. There might be somebody that's interested in ones that work with people that have drug addictions. So anyway, whatever your passion or your interest is, that's what you try to match up. The tax form I showed you a couple slides ago is something that you have a right to see. Every nonprofit has to send these in, and they have to make them available for the public to see. It's not like your personal tax return, which is pretty confidential. But the nonprofit it is a public document. Some small organizations are so small they fill out a smaller form called 990EZ, or the 990 postcard. And what we normally try to do is have you not pick those as your grant choice, because it's harder for us to figure out exactly what we need to know because they are so small. But there's times when we'll allow it. And normally what we'll do is, for the class assignments, we make you pick one that has a regular 990 tax return, just for the exercise. And then we may let you fund the one if we think it's good, and you agree, or I mean, if you think you have one that's good, we'll take a look at it. But again, the problem is they're too small to do a tough or a thorough investigation. Now, since I send you out the slides, you don't have to necessarily write this down. But this is the website that we use. And I'm going to go into it and show it to you in just a second here. Now, the thing that you got to remember is we only have one license. And so, like, if we're in class, we ask you not to log into it. You can see it without a login, but you can't see everything that we show you. So let me see if I can get into that website. And this will be really your best instrument to figuring out what's going on. Now, you're not going to find all 1.6 million nonprofits in GuideStar, but for the most part, if a nonprofit wants to kind of get a good reputation, they go into something like this, like GuideStar, and there's a couple others, but GuideStar is the one that we use. Does somebody have a name of a organization that they like? Can you guys see the GuideStar webpage?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have a name? Also, we can look up one real quick.
American Cancer Association.
That one's probably a big one.
I have a quick question. You mentioned this being a resource for nonprofits that want to gain a better reputation. Do
Right.
the nonprofits that show up on this like give their approval to have their tax forms on here? I was just curious about that process.
No, to be on here, they gotta post their tax returns, and that's how. I mean, otherwise they don't get on here, for one thing. But the tax returns are public. Anyway, for cancer, it looks like, see up here, 18,764 results. Here's the American Cancer Fund. And a GuideStar gives them a gold rating. It's a little bit different than what we do. But anyway, you go into the the charity. And then in here somewhere, okay, down right here, see that plaque that says tax forms?
Yes.
Right there, I'm circling it.
Mhm.
That's 990s, that's where you find them. And so if you click on that, you'll see a whole bunch listed here. And normally we want you to look at the most recent tax return. And so if you click on that, you get this beautiful looking document called a tax return. That's on here. It's not that exciting, but what it is, it gives us the data that we need to start figuring out what's going on with the nonprofit. This nonprofit looks like it's in Hillsborough, North New Jersey. I'm sorry. And here it says what they do. They have a website and outreach events to inform groups about cancer, relating to cancer. You can start seeing on this line down here the revenue that they get. And there's a thing called, what we're going to talk about a little bit, program service revenue. That's for selling stuff. And then there's total revenue, which is here. So you can see 1 year they were at 529,000. And then they went down to 338,000. On our, I think our rules are, we'd like to have, I think, a nonprofit of at least 500,000, and then a maximum, I think, of 20 to 40 million in revenue, because there's ones that are just giant, but we're trying to focus a little bit more on the small ones. But anyway, you can see here, this is the tax return, has many pages. This one has 37 pages. We end up looking at about probably 4 or 5 pages, because normally that's where we can find the information that we need. So this is what is called, this is GuideStar. Let me put, does anybody else have another one we can use for practice here?
Can you try brain and behavior?
How do you say that again?
Brain and behavior.
Like that?
Yes.
Okay. Brain behavior education.
The research foundation, that one. Yes.
Right here, okay.
Yes.
So there are $26 million or $33 million of receipts. And so they're located in New York. Now we have a couple rules when we get to doing the real stuff, is we always want you to pick a local charity. And by local, we mean within 100 miles, basically, you know, close enough where you could take them the check that we give you. But anyway, if you click on this and then you go back down to the heart, this kind of hidden part, you can see that's the tax return. And the tax return you can download if you want on your computer, and then you can not be online. Probably once you get one that you really like, it's a good thing to do. But anyway, it's the same thing. This one's 25 million. Looks like total revenue is 26 million. So we start looking at a few things on these, and we'll go we'll do that in a little bit. But that's how you use GuideStar. It's a little intimidating, so we understand that, and that's why I also want you to have some of these sheets, so you can just use them as scratch sheets, and we can do some in class together, and kind of, you know, do it together, so you have kind of you have an idea of what you're getting into. So that's the password. That's the username and password right there, and that's what we use to do our research. And then you'll get a copy of this again. I think the tax forms were a little further down than this, but anyway, it's down to the right, bottom right hand corner. So let's look at the things. Here's our range, 200,000 to 20 million. We actually let people go a little higher than that. And we'll let people go a little bit lower than that. But that's kind of what we're looking for as far as a range. So that would be line 12. Let me see if I can pull up the other one I had here that I showed you earlier. You see the one on there, it's called OC United. Do you guys see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so basically, I think in our thing there, we said, look at line 9 and 12. And I've highlighted those for you. I'm going to send this out as an example for you to use, since it's marked and it has little highlights where you see stuff. But anyway, that's when we talk about line numbers, that's what we're talking about. So line 12, which is the one down here, should be between 500 and 1,000 and 20 million. This one's right in that ballpark. Compare line 9, that's called program service revenue, to line 12, total revenue. It's what percent of the money they receive comes from charging for goods and services. So maybe they may be selling T-shirts, they may be selling other stuff. Sometimes they'll sell food, at a big discount. So anyway, we just are looking at seeing how much of what they're doing comes from selling stuff. And it's kind of and we want to know what that is. And then we know that the other part is donations, people being, donating to them. So we think our thinking is if it's more than 70%, then the organization doesn't really rely on donations. So that's why those are important. So let me go back to our sample model here. This is a small, these guys are in Fullerton, California. They work helping people rebuild their lives. They work a lot with the foster kids. And fact is, Giving University bought them a home for foster kids that are in transition between 18 and 23. So we really like these guys. So, but anyway, that's what they do. But again, if you go down, they're selling $10,000 of something. The prior year, they weren't really selling stuff. And their total revenue was $833,000. So they're selling about 1%. But what they were selling is about roughly 1.5% or 1%, something like that, of that total number right there. Does that kind of make sense to you guys?
Yes.
So here's another sample. Page 1, lines 9 through 12. This is the first page of the tax return. Line 9 is the program service revenue, that's selling stuff. And total revenue is all the money they bring in. So these guys are bringing in they're selling a lot of stuff. They're charging people for something. So they're at 95%. And so that's way too high for us to give them a good score on that piece. That's, it's a real high number. Let me bring up my other sheet. The one that you printed out for me, maybe you didn't, but this sheet is really important because this really, what we do is we have you go through these forums and get a score. And it's a little technical, but we're kind of making sure the money piece is good. What's going on is good. So if you notice up here, our scoring, if they're less than 60% on stuff they're selling, and we give them 3 points. I think we'd like to see it down to 30, but we still give them the highest score possible if it's less than 60%. So that's line 9 by line 12. If it's 80%, we only give them 1 point. So when you have these as worksheets, you put in the score right over here, and that way, and that's how you score the sheet on the sheets. But that's why I want you to print some out. You know, I know we do everything online these days, but sometimes it's just nice to print the darn thing out and have a pencil and paper and then, you know, scribble on it a little bit. So that's those 2 pages. Page 2 is accomplishments. So we read 4A, 4B, 4C. So let's go back to we're going to go back to the form. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. It's down here. Well, not sure what part we're talking about here. Basically, what we're saying is we want to make sure that they're doing what you want to see happen. And you know, that's in their statement up here, right in here. We exist to empower the you know, the vulnerable who have experienced breakdowns. Ideally, and what we state on this line here, whoops, went backwards. Let's see, where did that go here? Yes, we did this one, and maybe we skipped this page. No, we didn't. Working our way back down. That's 9 and 12. This is where we were. So what we're saying is if you want your grant to be split up right here, that's fine too. We can do $500 to one and $500 to the other. Most people do one grant to one place, but we have some flexibility. You might also want to see how many people were impacted by each activity. And so if they help 1,000 people, and you know, their total revenue is $10,000, then that's $10 a person. So sometimes if you get real high numbers on the per person cost, you might want to take a look at it. Now, some things are real intensive with that because they're care facilities or things like that, and the cost is much higher. Which is okay because that's what it takes, but it's another way of getting a clue on your nonprofit.
Daniel, can you tell us a little bit more about what the grant is? I haven't heard a lot about that. So I obviously we would get a grant, but how is, obviously we would choose it. What's the amount? How is it, you know, provided to that? I just don't know anything about that. This is the first time I've heard about it. Sure,
that's a good question. When you go through the class and you have good attendance and you do all that good stuff, we give you $1,000 for a nonprofit that you pick from. You know, it doesn't have to be on GuideStar, but it's real simple. We give you $1,000. You do the 990 analysis form, and we're going to go through that in a minute here, but if they score 15 and above, usually we'll approve the grant. if they're 14 or lower, we ask you to take a look at somebody else. And so we just want to make sure with all the stuff that we're showing you, that I'm showing you tonight, that they're in the wheelhouse of what we like to see as far as financial responsibility. So when, so anyway, what you do is then you have to write a little grant. It's kind of like writing up what they do, why you like them. You know, it's 3 or 4 paragraphs. And then we have you share with the group why you picked them, why you like them, and you know what they do. So it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. When you do that, we turn your 990 analysis form, which is this form right here. So let's just say I had a group that got a 17, you would turn that in, and then you have a 2 or 3 page grant that you write out, and you turn that in, and then the board has a team that approves the grant or doesn't approve it one way or the other. In theory, what we'd like, when we were meeting in person, at the last class, we'd give everybody $1,000 check written out to that nonprofit. And then you would deliver the check to the nonprofit.
That is awesome. I had no idea. So thank you for explaining that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so your family of 4 will be able to give, will be able to donate $4,000 to 4 different places.
That is amazing.
So
Okay,
that's what
thank you for explaining that.
Well, that's what we do, and it's in the part of in the stuff here too. So it just takes a while to get to some of this. So on if you go down to page 7, let me go find the next thing we look at. Let me go to my sheet here. Right here, we're really interested in the salaries. Remember, we at the front end here of our class tonight, we were saying, do people get paid? Can they get paid? Yes, they can get paid. So we're pretty interested in what's going on here. And so we take a look. Here's our rules. We understand that you have to have people that run the place. And for the range that we put up there of 500,000 to 30 million or whatever it is, there might have to be a person that's like a CEO type of range. And so what we're looking for is how many people are there that are getting paid this amount or more. So if there's less than 2, we give 3 points. If there's more than 3, we give 1 point. And I'll show you in a little while, I'll show you an example of how this kind of varies in interesting ways. So on this sample here in our slides, we had one guy that was at 398 and one that was 182. And here was the problem with this one. And this one we probably wouldn't allow, or we probably wouldn't fund. 2 salaries were above 170, but we also learned they were married. And so that's a little bit of a red flag to us that, you know, we're not sure we like exactly what's going on here. So let me go back to my sample. Here we go, OC United. The married one we find a little more often than you'd think. But, you know, it's fine if you know, people that are married work together. We're not against that. But anyway, here's this nonprofit that I pulled up. So they have a president of the board. He's not paid. Somebody's paid a little bit here. And they have other compensation, so it's 43,000. And here's another person that's 42,000. And so basically, that's it. That's very modest, very much, you know, reasonable. And so this organization, we would give them. Let me go back to we'd give them 3 points in the B column here, right here, because they're good. Here's another example. Oh, this is the one I was going to show you. Here's a nonprofit. Now, this one was a little surprising. Remember when I said the number 1.6 million was surprising for the number of nonprofits out there?
Mhm.
Well, here's another document that's a little surprising when you first take this class. You can see there's some high numbers here. It's a nonprofit. And that's the first page, and that's the second page. And I think there's more than that. There's, looks like 36 people. Not all of them are getting paid. But just to give you an example, there's nonprofits where there's a lot of highly paid people, or at least I would consider them highly paid. And so we're not picking on any particular nonprofit. We just want you to see what's going on, and you can decide on your donation. I'm not talking about our $1,000 donation. I'm just talking about you as a person donating to nonprofits. You can decide, is your $100 going to be significant with what this group is doing, as opposed to maybe another group? Anybody know which group this is here, by the way? Anybody?
Red Cross.
It's the Red Cross.
Yeah, it says Red Cross right there.
Yeah, well, not everybody's, I just wanted to see who's paying attention. So anyway, yes, it's the Red Cross. And so they got a lot of highly paid people. I think they have more than 36 at this kind of rate. So it's way, way up there. And again, our point isn't, the Red Cross does a lot of great things, but this kind of gives some revelation to, you know, how your money's used by the Red Cross. One thing I've encouraged Steve, you guys saw the Steve Bray video, he's our founder, and he rags on the Red Cross pretty good. One thing I've always encouraged our group of GU leaders to do is, if there's a disaster, you know, the Red Cross is right there, and they're out front, and they're collecting money, and they're doing all kinds of good stuff. But I've always said, let's give people, if they ask for it, an alternative to the Red Cross, where maybe their money's being used a little more effectively in that disaster. Let's just not be negative about all this stuff. Let's be helpful and just give people an opportunity to make a choice on how they want to help somebody. But these guys, the Red Cross wouldn't score very well in that B line right there. Is there any questions? Does that make sense to you guys? Was anybody surprised? Or did you all know that?
Where do I apply for the Red Cross?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the nonprofit world does have some well-paying positions. Okay, we're keeping going here. What to looking for in the 990 part 7, page 9, statement of revenue. It determines how much of their revenue comes from government grants. And that's important to us because if they're getting maybe 20% or 10% from government grants, that's probably pretty good. We get really concerned if it's 80 or 90 or 100% from government grants, because the minute the government decides not to grant them funding, they're pretty much done. And so you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket when it's just all government grants. There's a lot of abuse in this also politically, because, you know, it's just how politics is. They'll help nonprofits, but basically they're kind of controlling things, and they use it with grant money. Organizations primarily funded by the government may still do great things, but their reliance on the government is a risk. And then you divide the number in 1E by the number in 1H, and is it more than 0.6 or 60%? So 1E, 1H, and this is page 9. So let's go look at our one nonprofit here. Page 8, page 9. So there's 1E in the green, and you divide it by 1H. And so you can see, does anybody have a calculator out there? Your iPhones have a calculator on there, by the way. Anybody give me a percentage on that? I'll wait for your answer. Anybody have it? Anybody have an iPhone?
Yeah.
What's the percentage on that?
You have you off.
It's 0.076%.
So what in percentage, you said 0.076? I think it's 7%. Hang on. just a second.
7%.
7%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's 7%, right? Yeah. 7.6, almost 8%. So what you do is you do 1E and you divide it by 1H, and that's what you get. So going back to, this is page 9. And again, I'm going to send you this sample because it's, you know, there's so many lines and so many numbers that it gets a little hard to figure out what the heck we're doing here. And it's a little overwhelming. And hopefully this can help you a little bit. But if you go back on our page here, we're looking, what did we say it was? 7% or something? 8%?
It's about 7.6.
7.6.
Okay, and how many points do we give them here?
Oh,
2
2
points.
points.
3 points, okay?
3 points.
So far, this nonprofit's got
Oh, yeah.
3, 3, and 3. So we put how many points is in here? The document I'm giving you has percentages. We have a different document online. It does it by 0.076, but I like percentages better, so that's why we use this document in my class anyway. But it's the same thing. It's just a different way of saying it. So that's the numbers we get. And is there any question on what this part is telling us? We just want to know that they're not totally relying on the government for their funding. And we're pretty, you know, 60% is a pretty high number to let them go up to. So it's 0.6 or 60%. It's the same thing. Page 9, this one's a little more complicated too. So let's see what we got here. So we're on page 9. Oh, and this is the one we just did. Okay, we did government grants divided by 1E divided by 1H. See that 1E and 1H. And the samples just, this is the sample in my PowerPoint. The other was my sample over here, which is not the PowerPoint sample, but it's 1E divided by 1H. This is the one, this is the sample I'm going to email you. So it's good practice. Part 9 is page 10, functional expenses. Look at one line. So line 1, and we're going to go to page 10, line 1. By the way, this is our hardest class as far as technical stuff. But I will say this, we have to practice this a lot. So like next week, we'll do one probably at the start of class. We'll go through it. I'll pull it up and I'll ask you guys to tell me what the scores are as we work through one of them. But we're on page 10, line 1. So here's page 10, line 1. Grants and other assistance to domestic organizations and domestic government. So basically, we want to know there's a lot of nonprofits that pass money through to other nonprofits. This one that I have as an example in front of you happens to not pass any money through to another nonprofit. So in our notes here, so line 1 is grants to other organizations. If it is high, the organization is primarily just giving funds to other organizations and requiring administrative overhead to do so. So for example, they may pass through, let's just say $1,000, but they may have a 10% overhead, administrative overhead charge. So that on the 1,000, they would keep 100 for administration. 10% is probably reasonable, but some of these nonprofits, they're just a pass-through organization.
Mm.
Divide line 1 by line 25 in the first column. And let's go see if our examples in here. So example, the one I showed you was 0. This is one that, this is line 1, and it's 2.3 million. Okay, does that make sense? And on that same page, the total functional expenses is 57 million. So you end up, who has that calculator? Divide 2.3 million. If you want to just divide 2.3 by 57.5, you'll get the same number. And tell me what that percent is.
4%.
4%, okay. So that's probably well within reason on our sheet. Yeah, see, we less than 60%, they get 3 points. So we're pretty generous on allowing, you know, a lot of up to 60% pass through. But if they're over 80%, they're just, you know, they're just basically passing through funds. And let me go back to my example. Here was 1B, and I think the other one was 25. It was, what do I have on the power there? Line 25, okay. So you can see line 25 was, this one is a 3 because they had 0. They were 0 on the top line up here. Okay, that one's a little trickier to score, but you guys understand the concept? So basically we're working with really boring tax forms, but I think it gives, it appeals and it opens up a way to see, you know, what's going on out there in a company, in a nonprofit. This is page 10, and you go to line 25. This is the next line. And let me go see where it is on our sheet here. Right here, see it says page 10, line 25. See, we're looking at this one now. And we're trying to see what the costs are for running the place, the management costs. That's what we're trying to do here. So divide the number in the third column, management, by the number in the first column. Is what we're trying to find out is it costing more than 10% to have an office, to have a staff, to have a receptionist, to have maybe a PR person? Is that costing more than 10%? And then for the last column, it'll be whether they spend it on fundraising. So, whoopsie. This is the management one. So the management was 0.6 or 6% on this organization. Because if you look on line 25 on page 10, line 25, all the numbers are here for these two calculations. That's the total expenses. That's the management, you know, the office costs, and that's the, all the way to the right is fundraising or advertising. Now we're trying to, we score the highest when they're under 10% in each of these boxes. Now, let me say something about fundraising. Fundraising, sometimes people, if they're at 0, think they're really, you know, the best thing going. But I always like to see money being spent there, because if you're doing something great and you're doing a great job and you have a great way of helping people, you need to enlist others. And basically fundraising and advertising and marketing is the way you get your message out there to people to help fund your organization, and to also enlist people to help you maybe as volunteers. So I'm always concerned if I see a zero here. If I see a zero here, I said, man, you need to tell people you're doing good stuff. And we know that they're all in when they're donating to you, but don't hide your story under a bushel. Don't hide it, but be modest about it. So back on our score sheet, this is the management one right here, management and overhead. And if they're less than 10%, we give them 3, and fundraising is we give them 3. So let's go down to this example I had. And who has a calculator? Divide 106 by 818.
818.
And tell me the percentage.
12%.
12%. Okay, so my model, really cool charity here, would get 2 points on this one. So they don't have a perfect score. And then because they're a little bit over. And then on the column for fundraising, which is, whoops, right there, 18. I think that is 10% is 81,000. So they're at about 2% or something like that. So they would get a 3. So back on this sheet here, they would have 3, 3, 3, 3, 2, 3. So they would have 17 points right here. And let's see what we say about that. If your organization scores less than 15, it won't be approved by the board. Pretty much, we would maybe have approved 1 or 2, but we've done hundreds of these. If your organization scores 15 or 16, it is unlikely to be approved by the board. But what we say is this: if you know you're at a 15, bring us the great reasons why you like them. Tell us what we're missing. Sell us, become the advocate for the nonprofit, and tell us why it should be, we should write a grant for them. Because we're not saying we wouldn't do it. We're just saying we need a little bit more than our scoring sheet here. At 17 or 18, it's likely to be approved by the board as long as it meets the requirements. And basically the requirements are, I think last week I said it couldn't be animals, and it couldn't be research, and a few other things like that. Check your notes. But in general, if you meet all the requirements, we hardly ever say no. I had to say no one time because the problem was this: the main office was in Newport Beach, but the activity was in New York. And so it scored a 18 or 17. It was an awesome one, but we had to turn it down because it wasn't local. We're trying to keep, this part of what we give people, we're trying to keep it local. Okay, give me some questions out there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if your organization is like a national organization? Can you still use it if they have like local locations?
Yes, if we can get that. Normally you have to prove it. And more than likely you need to have a tax return that shows that it's local. Okay, so like we don't do Ronald McDonald because it's national, and they don't score that good is the other problem. But we need the local ones that, and there's ones like you just described that are that way, and so it is possible. But you have to make sure you can identify it on a local basis, and you can give us the numbers. But with GuideStar, let me tell you one thing. What city are you in?
Sacramento?
Sacramento?
Yeah.
So let's do this a minute. Let's see where we're at here. See. So up here, you can go to California. I think this means, okay, in Sacramento, there's how, looks like there was 2,400 nonprofits in Sacramento. See, these are all Sacramento. So we don't, we're not trying to be mean on the big national guys, but there's a lot locally that's going on. And one of the good things this does, it helps you appreciate your local charities where you live. And because the other thing we hope would happen is you may volunteer for them at some point and go help them out. And you can see there's lots of choices of stuff here. It didn't look like you were excited about my answer, but that's the answer. I know when you don't like it. Does that answer your question though?
Yeah, and I'm not mad.
No, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Anybody else have any questions on what you just saw? It's a lot. So what you have to do, and what I want you to do next class is a couple of you bring me some examples and I'll do them live with you. And we'll try to see, we'll stumble through and we'll score them and see what we come up with. Because the only way this works is if you have to try it. It's not magic. Once class is over and it's 8 o'clock and I disappear from your life, you go, that was nice. I'm glad that's over. Well, it doesn't fix anything because next Sunday night, we're in the same place. And so I'll send you the sample that I was showing you and you can look in the notes. So you have 2 samples or at least part of 2 samples. And so it'll give you an idea of, how to score this thing. But again, print out, I say this over and over because everybody waits till the last minute. And I just know how classes are. And they stumble around and they don't start looking till class 6 and we're done at 7 classes most of the time. And so kind of try to just play around with it a little bit. Let me go back to sharing the screen. So anyway, this gives you an idea of what we're looking. Let's go back up here. Let's go through them maybe one more time really quickly. So here you're finding your tax return. Now, sometimes it'll go back to 2017. That's okay. We don't like them that old, but it's still okay. You should see a lot of 2019 and 18s in there. Because of COVID, it may be, everybody uses COVID as an excuse for everything that's wrong in the world. So that's what's going on. That's what's going on. So, but anyway, you can just use the last one that's there. Try to stay between 200 and 20 million, but if you go to 40 million, that should be fine. If yours goes down to 125, that should be fine. What happens though, a lot of times is under 200, they start using that easy form. And that's the one we most like, it's just too hard for us to figure out what's going on with them. Remember on page 1, you look at service revenue, like are they selling stuff or how are they getting money in? And how's that compared to their donations? This company they got 284,000 out of 15 million, so it's 2%. So very low revenue from charging customers. I think they got a 3. Accomplishments on 4A, 4B, 4C, that's where I was stumbling around a little bit. when you look at the tax return, make sure they do what you like, making sure it's something that you're really excited about, you're passionate about, you have a high interest in. If you see how many people they help out in the tax return, maybe divide that by the total income to give you an idea of how effective they are. That's just another little thing to look at. The highly compensated, you guys got a little shock therapy there on the Red Cross one, but you'd be amazed what we find. I think that's one of the things that kills these off quicker than anything is that page. But we always find that people are really grateful that we show them this, and it helps them understand what's going on. Because we don't want people to get unhappy with how they invest their money in their nonprofits. And this was an example of one that had a lot of highly paid people. The Red Cross is a wonderful place, but we want you to realize what goes on there too. How much they get from the government. You know, if they're getting a 90% from the government, you know, they're at risk if the government doesn't like them anymore. And then are they just giving money to other organizations? I think that's what United Way does. Is almost everything they do is a pass through. And most of you heard of United Way, or some of you?
Yes.
And I think that's kind of what they do. And then the pass through grants is you know, how much money are they passing through?
What if there's nothing in the program service revenue?
It's okay. That means they get a 3. You mean on the very first page?
Yeah, because I looked up mine and it's on line 9. It doesn't have anything on line 9.
That means they'll get a 3.
That means it's a 3. Okay.
Yeah. But
What is that?
but print out your, okay, but here's what I want you to do is print out your little form right here, the one I emailed you. And make sure, what's that?
I didn't get it in the email.
Okay, can you send me an email right now and I'll send it to you tonight?
Okay. Yeah, well, what does that mean though? Like when it doesn't have anything in there?
It just means that they get it all donations.
Okay.
Goodness.
Thank you.
It means they're not selling. You're talking about this line right here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. See, these guys here, our little favorite one had 0 that one year. So they got a 3, and then they still got a 3 because it was really a low number. But even I take my time and I go back and I say, okay, what am I saying here? Line 9 divided by 3. Most of us still know how to do division and multiplication and percentages, but I know it's a challenge. But it's probably 5th grade math, which is sad, but that's how we are, because we're all used to machines doing everything for us now. But anyway, your line 9 was 0. And line 12, let's just say, was 10,000. So 0 divided by 10,000 is 0%. And so that's 3 points. That's how that works.
Thank you.
You got it. And this is the management, you know, are they managing it well? And are they doing too much fundraising, playing golf, having charities like that, you know, fundraisers? We expect some, but we just don't want it to get them to get carried away with it. I'm going to show you one. Got a few minutes, not too long. I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you a fraud. And if I don't get to it, let me do the 5-minute video. And let me see if it comes up first of all. Let's stop sharing here. Because there are a lot of frauds out there. Let me change it to this one. So let me share this real quick. All the buttons are checked off. Share.
A new kind of doctor's office that's doing primary care differently.
Anderson Cooper 360, weeknights at 8 and 10 on CNN.
Can you guys hear the audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Keeping them honest tonight, a year-long investigation by the Tampa Bay Times, the Center for Investigative Reporting, and previous reporting here on AC 360 shows that a small but aggressive segment of the charity world seems to care little about actually helping others. Instead, it generates six-figure salaries for some of the people who run the charities and feeds a multi-billion-dollar professional solicitation industry that only cares about profit. And what we've also found out is that no matter how blatant the scam or how obvious the proof is that donations are being squandered, no one seems to be going after them. CNN's investigative correspondent Drew Griffin tonight, keeping them honest.
Drive down these country roads outside Knoxville, Tennessee, and into this small industrial park, and you'll find the headquarters of a family conglomerate of cancer charities that return lavish salaries to their owners, but according to their own tax records, donate very little to dying cancer patients. And the last thing the people running this charity want to do is answer questions.
Don't turn your camera on me, okay?
Across the country, in Mesa, Arizona, another outpost of the conglomerate. It's called the Breast Cancer Society. Its CEO and executive director, the man escaping in the truck, James Reynolds Jr.
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Reynolds. Hey, excuse me. Mr. Reynolds, right here, buddy. Mr. Reynolds. Hi. Hi, can you stop for a second? No, where are you going, Mr. Reynolds? Mr. Reynolds?
Back in Knoxville, there's another cancer charity, the Children's Cancer Fund of America. And this one run by yet another member of the family, Rose Perkins.
Hi, is Rose Perkins in?
She's unavailable and she's not doing any interviews at all.
Why wouldn't she do us any interviews? She's running a charity here for kids with cancer, right? That seems like a good idea.
It is. That's what I've been just told to tell you. She's not doing interviews.
Can you tell us what you guys do? Any positive things you do with the money you collect?
Your questions to her email.
Okay, what's that email?
And we'll answer it.
If you were asking us for money, what would you say you did with your money?
We help children with cancer.
And how do you do that?
What do you mean, how do we do that? We help children with cancer.
Yeah, how?
We
In what
provide
way?
them a financial assistance.
Financial assistance, and do you have any idea how many?
If you have any other questions, please send them to her email.
Okay, my question.
Rose Perkins did email us and tell us her charity has a clear conscience because we feel we are making a good difference in people's lives, but also told us an interview is not something we can consider. That may be because of the questions we'd like to ask her and the other members of her extended family, who are essentially making a living on your donations. Rose Perkins, the CEO of the Children's Cancer Fund, is paid $227,442 a year. Her ex-husband, James Reynolds Sr., is president and CEO of Cancer Fund of America. He gets paid $236,815. And James Reynolds Jr., president and CEO of the Breast Cancer Society, has a salary of $261,609. It's money that comes from donors like you, who in 2011 sent these three charities $26 million in cash. How much of those donations actually went to helping cancer patients? According to the charity's own tax records, about 2% in cash. Example, the Cancer Fund of America raised $6 million through its fundraising campaign in 2011 and gave away just $14,000.
So you guys, sorry to stop this, but you can see the our little tax form friend behind there. That's how they're figuring this out.
$940 in cash. But that is not what you would hear from the telemarketers hired by the Cancer Fund of America, run by James Reynolds Sr.
Okay, how much of my $10 will go to, who is this to?
Cancer Fund of America Support Services.
Cancer.
100%
Okay.
of your donation goes into the fund where we purchase medical supplies for these cancer patients. We also do the hospice care for the terminally ill, and we supply over 600 hospice offices with medical supplies all over the United States.
But how much of my $10 will
It goes
go?
100% towards the charity itself. I'm calling directly from the charity and not a telemarketing agency.
Oh, well, that's great then.
According to the Iowa Attorney General's office, which gave us these recordings, those phone call statements are one great big lie. The callers were telemarketers being paid to make the call. The state of Iowa fined the telemarketing company $35,000 for making false representations. As for donations to other charities, the Cancer Fund of America claimed on its 2011 tax filings it sent $761,000 in so-called gifts in kind, not actually cash, to churches, some hospitals, and other programs around the country. When we called or emailed those other charities to check, many of them said they did get something, things like these supplies. But several of the groups told us they never heard of the Cancer Fund of America or don't remember getting a thing. The Cancer Fund also takes credit for serving as a middleman, brokering transfer of another $16 million worth of gifts in kind to individuals and other charities, many of them overseas. Those contributions double up, both as revenue and donations on the same tax forms. Back at the Cancer Fund of America's corporate office, even the chief financial officer, who, by the way, has a salary of $121,000, couldn't explain what was happening.
We just have all these North Mississippi Medical Center. Never heard of you. Yolanda Barco Oncology Institute. Nothing.
Looking for a lifeline in these tough times? Well, forget about stocks, real estate, cryptocurrency, or other types of investing.
I know that's one of the ones that we looked at, but again, you would have to talk to him. I don't want
The him is James Reynolds Sr., the founder who finally told us in an email his board thought it unwise to talk to CNN, even though in a different email he called the news of phantom donations, quote, most disturbing. As for his son, James Reynolds Jr., and his charity in Arizona,
Hey, how are you?
The camera needs to stay outside.
Okay, can he stay right there? Is Mr. Reynolds here?
I'm sorry he's not in right now.
the public relations officer for the Breast Cancer Society, Christina Hickson, who, by the way, is married to James Reynolds Jr., sent us emails telling us the Breast Cancer Society's guiding mission is to provide relief to those who suffer from the effects of breast cancer, and that we've made a difference in the lives of tens of thousands of men and women, but declined our request for an on-camera interview. And when our camera found James Reynolds Jr., he made sure we got the message with a single finger salute.
Drew, this is just unbelievable. I mean, you've done so much great reporting on this, on veterans charities that are scams, but I mean, these people's faces, I feel like, should be put on T-shirts, and everybody should see their faces and know their names, because what they're doing is just horrific. The fact that they're running away like cockroaches from your cameras, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. If you're running a charity and you're asking for people's money, you have nothing to hide. I mean, if you're doing nothing wrong, you should have nothing to hide. It's unbelievable to me. What's your estimate on how much cancer patients and some community groups actually did receive from the Cancer Fund of America or these other charities?
We took a look at these IRS tax records, their own reporting, along with the Centers for Investigative Reporting and the Tampa Bay Times. Anderson, we think it's just about 2%. Think of it. You give one of these charities $1, they'll give 2 cents in good to somebody out there. And that's just, you know, kind of our best guesstimate of this. It is really, as you say, it's ridiculous.
And the fact that it's like fathers and ex-wives and girlfriends and brothers, I mean, this is just insane. These people are probably living it up at country clubs in their communities, and I bet people in their communities have no idea of what they are doing, of the people that they are socializing with. And these people should be, you know, put on posters, I feel like. Are regulators concerned? Because it certainly seems like they should be.
Look, you and I have been doing these stories now, Anderson, for a year and a half. Now, we do know, we have a source with direct knowledge that says that the Cancer Fund of America leaders have been deposed in part of a multi-state review of these charities by various state agencies. But let's be honest, we've been laying this out for a year and a half. We've had interest from the Senate Finance Committee. I'm coming to you live from Cincinnati, where IRS workers had time to review applications for Tea Party groups, but nothing seems to get done when we lay it all out. We and our partners have a list now of the 50 worst charities in America on our website, and we're showing you how bad it is. I just don't understand why no one in government, whether it be state or federal, can do anything to stop this.
Do we have still photos? Do we have some still photos of these people? Because let's just put them up. I just want to look at these people again and say their names. James Reynolds Jr. there on the left. James Reynolds Sr., the charming guy who said his board thought it wasn't a good idea, and Rose Perkins. I mean, these people, they're running away. It's like in that old 60 Minutes, people, Mike Wallace walks into a garage and people start running away. He's like, why are y'all running away like cockroaches? That's what these people are doing. I challenge any of these people. We will give them an interview. If you don't want to talk to Drew, you can talk to me anytime, anywhere. I will come down and meet you if you don't want to talk to Drew. I mean, this is unbelievable. We're going to stay on this. Drew, appreciate the reporting. Thank you.
Okay, so that ran a little over, but you kind of get the idea that there's good stuff out there and there's not so good stuff out there. Any questions on that?
That's crazy.
Yeah, again, we had a lady in class down in South Orange County. It was a fraud pastor, and it was, she ended up losing $125,000. So yeah, there's with $1.6 million, there's going to be some really outstanding ones, and there'll be some really not so outstanding ones. And we just want to, this is a tool. They were using tax forms, basically, like we're just showing you tonight, to kind of figure all this stuff out. So there's only a couple more here, and I'm a few minutes over, but I don't usually go over. Low score doesn't mean they're bad. Many organizations do great work, but aren't run as well as they could be.
You're not sharing.
What's that?
Are you supposed to
Sharing
screen?
Yeah, I didn't feel like sharing no more. How's that? Can you see it now? You guys can see it now, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so we did a couple 990s. A low score doesn't mean they're bad. Many organizations do great work. They just need to be run better. Sometimes a low score means they don't rely on donations. And there might be a story. There might be something there we just don't see. And it's hard to get donations too. So, sometimes it's very difficult. The organizational review document that we'll give to you, you'll describe the organization, its purposes, major activities. Is this organization having an impact? Review the 990s and discuss your findings, and that's what you do on the analysis form. Have you been involved with this organization in the past, and how do you expect to be involved in the future? And some people might say, what right do we have to say that one organization is better than the other? We have the right because we're given the money, but we think that that we know, in fact, that some have more impact. Some do far greater things with the money that's donated to them than others do. Each GU board member applies the rules we just discussed, plus any personal knowledge to vote for or against, and the majority wins. Often the board comes back requesting additional information. Local, you must research a local organization that helps local people. Avoid national organizations that happen to have a local presence. Those are 3 examples. And help us learn about more organizations. We want to learn about more. Sometimes we make repeat donations. We're always trying to learn more about what great stuff there is out there, and there's a lot of great stuff out there. Your homework is find 2 or 3 organizations that are aligned with your passions. Come prepared to propose an organization that you want to assess. Pairing up is okay, but give us 2 different proposals. And make sure you print out your 990 analysis for me. So I think in the chat here, let me grab that. Peggy, let me grab your email because I got to make sure I do all.
I actually replied, the email you sent tonight about the Facebook, I replied to that as well to make sure you had my correct email.
Oh, if you got that one, then you did get it.
Well, so I got that one, but I didn't get the one before that you sent twice now. So I think maybe my email was incorrect in that one.
Oh,
Same as me. I'm the same situation, and I emailed you as well.
Okay, what is the email that you're using?
I can give you, yes, TIA ITZA. Yes. At Gmail.
So it's TIA
ITZA.
at Gmail. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? I
haven't gotten my emails either.
Teresa, you haven't? Oh, what's your email?
TL Collins, the number 8 at hotmail.com.
And have you checked your
I'm checking it now. There's nothing there.
your spam folder? Okay, why don't the 3 of you stay on the call and I'll send you an email right now. Everybody else, you can go bye-bye. Thanks for being here. Remember to work on your stuff. Don't slack on me. I'll print out the form and I will send you the class notes and I'll send you the sample organization that had the highlighting for you. Okay, so stay on the line with me, just the 3 of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For the
Bye.
90 analysis, we're using the organization's most recent tax form.
Yeah, you can go.
That was Diana. Yeah, you just do the most recent one you find online.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Peggy.
Hey,
and
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. First of all, thank you. I've loved this. This has been
You're
really
welcome.
like eye-opening stuff. I just wanted to check. So we've kind of learned how to do these things. Is there anything that's going to be due like before next class, or are we more just kind of learning how to do things for later?
No, next class, bring the main thing is bring some of these.
Got it. Okay.
And maybe bring me a name of an organization. We can go through it for you. Even if it's not one you end up with, just maybe poke around a little bit. And we'll give it, because these are the hardest to do. I know you guys are really quiet and I know what goes on. You're going, oh, this is a little bit complicated. Because it is. I've taught this a couple times and I have to sit down and look at each line because the tax return has so many lines and so many things and so many boxes. So we just try to help you work through it. And we do double check the scores you turn in, just so you know. Okay. So
yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. The 3 of you stay online real quick and I'll send you an email. I want to make sure you get them.
Me too.
Thank you.
Me too.
You're welcome. Stand by. Oh, let me stop the